Hi, I'm Mike Stephen, and this is Gear Up. Today we're going to talk about alpine touring skins. So we're not going to talk about as much about what you do to use them as about taking care of them. So of the maintenance of them and allowing them to perform better and last longer for you. So there's two sides to a skin. There's the nylon or mohair side that gets you your grip. It's smooth in one direction, rough in the other direction to get your grip. These little nylon hairs need some maintenance. So after a while, what happens is there's a protective coating that's on these little hairs. And after a while, that protective coating, after gliding on them, eventually wears off. It's a DWR coating, which means it's a coating that repels water or is hydrophobic. So you need to renew that hydrophobic coating if you want your skins not to glop up or start packing in snow and then you'll be up on snow stilts. It greatly reduces the efficiency of the skin. So after about, depends on how much use, but after about a year, year and a half, you're probably gonna need to do some skin maintenance. And some of the stuff that you can put on there is this stuff is called Free Glide. You spray it on, you let it sit on there and dry, and it redoes the DWR coating. It's the best way to go. This is what you do at home, and it'll protect your skin. If you're out in the field and this starts happening, a lot of people will carry with them. A few companies make one called Glop Stopper. It's basically a rub-on wax. Again, rub with the skin and crayon the wax onto it. Again, wax is hydrophobic, and it's going to make the skin repel the water, thus repelling the snow, and the snow won't stick to it. So those are two different things that you can do. One for at-home use, one for out in the field if you're 2 days into a tour and all of a sudden your skins start to stick and start to gather snow. There's also skin cleaner. So you can, at home, you can actually clean the skin before you put your DWR coating on. What we've noticed in the industry is cross-country skis now have skin material on them. So there's lots of products coming to the forefront because cross-country skiers are very much so interested in the efficiency of the skin. So with the introduction of cross-country ski skins, what we're noticing is that the alpine touring world is getting all sorts of products to take good care of their skins and make their skins move faster. This is a cleaner to clean off any residue, dirt, grime before you apply something like this, like a DWR coating. This is another skincare product. Like I said, there's various products out there. This is another skincare product that instead of spraying on, it's like a towelette that you use to kind of put it onto the skin. So we've talked about the nylon side or the mohair side, the grippy traction side. The other side is the glue side. So on skins, you have this stuff underneath, the glue. So the glue over time will also wear out and get some non-sticky spots on it. You want it to be nice and sticky so that it goes right up against your base and no snow can sneak in through the sides and start to pull the skin off. So the biggest thing that you can probably do to take care of your skin is that when you take it off your ski for when you're skiing down is to take good care of it by folding it back on itself so that you have very little glue exposed. That way any granola, lint, anything that you have in your backpack, little odds and ends aren't sticking to it and contaminating the skin glue. Probably most of the people that wreck their skins and have to reapply glue, it's just from self-contamination, pine needles, all that kind of stuff that's in your jacket pockets or in your backpack, wherever you're storing your skins. So my recommendation is fold it back on itself. Some people like to use what's called Skin Saver in between it, just makes it easier to tear apart. It doesn't hurt the skin to glue it right back on itself, but with the Skin Saver in between the skin, it makes it easier to open up. I like to use something like this. It's called a Love Glove, and basically it's just a faster way of taking your skin and putting it into a protected environment. Then after that, I put it in the storage bag. So you can kind of see if you want to take good care of the glue on your skins, it's a multi-layer protection. First you stick it on itself, then you put it in a micro bag, then you put it in a storage bag. So that's the best way to do it. The other things that can happen to glue is glue over time can start to stick and glop and lose patches of glue. There is small tubes of just apply on glue that you can apply it to small areas and fix small areas of the skin. Whereas if your skin is completely contaminated and you need to start from ground zero, you can actually scrape a skin. So remove all the glue off of it, scrape it, and reapply a Glue Renew kit. Glue Renew kits are fairly simple to install. You just kind of put them on and you iron it on, and the glue transfers from similar to a wax paper onto the skin material. So those are a few ways that you can take care of your skins. Some of them I mentioned were for in the backcountry, and most of them that I mentioned are preventative maintenance. If you have any questions, definitely pop into your local ski shop. They'll be happy to answer further questions. This has been Gear Up, and my name's Mike Stephen. Hi, I'm Mike Stephen, and this is Gear Up. Today we're going to talk about maintenance on your bike. I'm going to talk about a few things, end of season maintenance and beginning of season maintenance. My big recommendation to you is at the end of the season to, if you have a suspension bike in particular, to get your suspension work done over the winter, where there's lots of times to get parts, lots of times to have things sent away if they need to be sent away back to the factory to be done. Because some tuning of suspension can be done, or service of suspension particularly, can be done in-house. Some has to be sent away back to the factory to be redone. So you have the back suspension, which is right here, your rear shock, and your front suspension, which is right here. Both systems use air and oil, and both systems need servicing. So the realistic thing to do on these guys is to bring it in at the end of the season like we talked, and then we have plenty of time to get that servicing done. Do you have to service it right at the end of the season? No, you could probably get away 2 to 3, 4 years without servicing. But it's just like doing that same thing with your vehicle. If you change your oil on your vehicle fairly regularly, you should probably change out the oil in your suspension. It'll just allow your suspension to last longer and perform better. A lot of companies will have service intervals of what to do after 50 hours, what to do after 100 hours, what to do after 200 hours, and your kind of 365 degree after one full year, what you should be doing to your suspension. A lot of the stuff isn't very expensive, and the preventative maintenance, like I say, can save you from a big bill. This, for example, is an air sleeve kit. Goes in your rear suspension, and it just replaces the seals and the glide rings and allows that rear shock to be nice and clean. It's the first area of the shock that gets contaminated when dust and grime tries to come past, and if you clear out that first stage area, it keeps your suspension running smoother a lot longer. So we talked about sending away your forks and rear shocks or potentially getting them worked on in-house at the end of the year. Now it's the beginning of the year. It's time to dust off the bike and get the bike out and ready. Seeing as we're talking about suspension, we'll continue on. One of the things that you're going to do, and you should do in the spring, is these air cans are high pressure. They can be holding 200 pounds air pressure in them. So it's a good idea to double check your air suspension and make sure that the air is still holding. So by attaching a shock pump onto your air valve, you can quickly discern whether you've lost pressure over the winter or whether it's still holding tight. But it's a good thing to do your rear and your front air pressure at the beginning of the season. That way you know how your bike's going to behave. For those of you that run tubeless, if you're running tubeless, chances are your solution has dried out over the winter. So tubeless, what replaces your tube in a lot of scenarios is a solution that goes into your tire. That solution sits in there and it can plug flats. It can plug like a staple hole, a nail hole, pinch flats. It can plug all those types of flats. But if over the winter it's dried up, it'll still hold air, but it won't protect you from the next incident, the next thing that you run over, the next tack, the next whatever. So it's a good idea again in the spring. Top up, 2 ounces of fluid is a general. Depending on your tire width and size, it does vary, but put 2 ounces of fluid back into your wheel so that you're protected again. The next thing that we're going to talk about is a real simple one. This should be done all the time. I recommend every 3rd or 4th ride at minimum, and that's lubing your chain. So lubing your chain is something that's really simple to do and will just give you better drivetrain life, smoother shifting. It'll help in a lot of different ways. The easiest way that I've found to lube the chain is go to your back. This is called the cassette. There's your chain. So you lube your chain right above your cassette while pedaling backwards. You just put some lubricant on. All you need to do is 1 complete revolution of the chain. Once you're done 1 complete revolution of the chain, you've lubed your chain. I like to let the lube sink in for about 5 minutes and then wipe the lube off the chain after the 5 minutes. The reason why I say to do that is that any of the lubricant that has gone into the links of the chain where the links actually moved, it's where it's supposed to be. The stuff that's on the exterior of the chain really isn't doing a lot of good. So if you wipe that part off, it'll keep your chain from getting grimy and crusted with trail debris and trail grime. Okay, so we've talked about doing some maintenance on your chain. The next thing that we're going to talk about is air pressure in your tires. So once you've done that stands or put the tubeless solution into your tires, my recommendation, again, it's very similar to chains, is you should be pumping up your tires. I do mine every single ride. On a mountain bike, at least once a week, you should be checking your air pressure. The reason why I say that is because the whole reason to go tubeless in a bike is that you get better feel for the ground. But if you're running 30 psi, then 28 psi, then 26 psi as your tire slowly loses air, which they normally do, it's natural, it's fine. Tubes have micropores in them, and the stands also has micropores. It will slowly lose a little bit of air. If you constantly have that air pressure set at a certain PSI, you'll have more confidence out on the trail. It's gonna always be that 32 PSI or that 18 PSI, whatever you're setting your tires to, and you will have one more thing that's very consistent out on the trail so that the inconsistencies like the weather, the trail changing, all those are the things that you're gonna have to think about. You don't have to think about how your tires are gonna be gripping. Okay, so that's going over tires. The last thing that we're gonna go over is just a good safety check on the bike. What you should do is you should check, yes, unfortunately, it is every nut and every bolt on the bike. There's Allen key, there's Torx bits. If you have an Allen key and a Torx bit, so you're gonna go over all your suspension bolts, your derailleur bolts, your disc bolts, your suspension bolts up in here, some of your crank mechanism down in here, and then up in the head tube of the bike. The thing that I'll caution you on this end of the thing, or on this end of maintenance, is not tightening it too much. Just snug is good. You don't have to be cranking it. A lot of people over tighten bolts and can cause damage. So you don't want to cause damage to your bike by doing some maintenance. So again, with those bolts, just a light torque. If you do have Torx wrenches, there is torque spec for every single bolt on a bike, and you can get that from your manual. Having said that, once you get a feel for the bike, a good snug bolt, you can feel when it's snug. So those are some of the things that I recommend going over in the springtime before you take your bike out for a ride. Have fun, get out there in the trails and enjoy. This has been Mike, Steven, and Gear Up. I'm Mike Stephen, and this is Gear Up. Today we're going to talk about hybrid bikes. A lot of times an overlooked bike because it's somewhere in the middle between a road bike and a mountain bike. A lot of times people are looking for one extreme or the other, whereas the hybrid covers both grounds fairly well and is a great commuter bike as well. We'll go over some of the features that make a hybrid bike so useful for a lot of people. So the gearing on a hybrid bike has a bigger ring up in the top, you've got a middle ring, and then you've got a small ring. You've got the ability to go between gears, between a harder gear, a middle gear, and an easy gear for climbing. In the back, vice versa, you've got a high-speed gear here, and then you've got all the way up into your easier gears up top here. So something like that is going to give you probably in the ballpark of about 40-45 kilometers an hour worth of speed. So in this area, if you're going down the river on rails trails towards the river, there's about a 2-3% grade that takes you down to that river. If you're on a mountain bike, you're probably going to spin out. Whereas on a hybrid bike or a road bike, you're going to have the gearing to be able to pedal that whole section, kind of keep your heart rate up for fitness, and keep moving at a good clip. As a general rule, asphalt, you're not going to get into too many steep pitches, whereas when you get into single track trail or forestry roads, sometimes they do get a little bit steep, and it's nice to have that extra bit of gearing. Next on this one does have a suspension fork. So having a suspension fork just allows it to behave a little bit better off-road. There are hybrids without a suspension fork, so they're rigid. Why? Because it's a little bit lighter and a little bit more efficient. So if you're that hybrid person that more goes towards the pavement, it's probably going to be the better choice for you. Whereas if you are the true right in the middle, doing a little bit of trail, doing a little bit of forestry road, a suspension fork is probably worth the extra bit of weight to add that cushioning up front. The front suspension will dampen the whole front end of the bike. You can see the fork moving here, so that anything that comes through the front wheel is going to be dampened through that suspension, making the ride easier on the rider, especially shoulders, neck, upper back. So hybrid bikes, the reason why they do get overlooked is because they're not a premium mountain bike and it's not a premium road bike. A road bike is faster on just pavement, and a mountain bike is more sturdy on just trails. But having said that, this is a multi-tool that can do both really well. Some categories that work really well for, a lot of people use them for commuting because they're a great commuter bike. If you use a road bike to commute, you might get a pinch flat or two, get flat tires a few times on those little wee narrow race wheels. A road bike is also quite twitchy, and they're very agile, very quick to maneuver, but somebody that isn't used to handling a road bike might find them twitchy. So a hybrid bike has a lot more relaxed feel on it, and it's going to get you to work on time still. It's very efficient, but it's not so narrow in the tires that you're going to get a flat on the way there. When you take this guy off-road, it definitely can handle like BC Parks trails, so like kind of like your smoother, rollier trails. It can still handle a lot of what a mountain bike can handle. It's just you don't want to push it too hard in there. It's not usually that the bike's going to break, it's that you're going to probably lose traction due to your tires more than anything. So you might lose traction and go down or have a spill because you've lost a bit of traction. But in terms of durability, the bikes are very durable and they can stand up to quite a bit of stuff. A bike like this has disc brakes, so it has the ability to stop on a dime. One of the big benefits of disc brakes, not only do they stop well and are they easy to stop because they're using hydraulic force to close the caliper or stop the bike, but they brake in any condition, whether it be rainy, snowy. It doesn't matter what the condition is, the brakes act the same through all conditions. So a lot of bikes nowadays are coming with a hydraulic brake just to give you that extra bit of security. You know what? Overall, I think we've gone over most of what a hybrid bike can do for you. If you have any questions, pop down to your local bike shop. They'll be happy to answer questions and direct you into the right type of bike, because that is the battle out there when you're trying to select a bike, getting the right bike for you, because a hybrid isn't right for everybody, nor is a mountain nor is a road. So you've got to get the right bike for what you're planning on doing. Thanks for watching Gear Up.